Hey you guys, it's Mathel here once again, and I'm sorry it's been a while since I've posted anything on YouTube. I have been doing other stuff in the form of playing Diablo 2 Resurrected and also some New World. And nothing too worth posting to the YouTube here yet, but I figured it's about time I kind of go over everything I've been doing in Diablo 2 for you, just in case you're interested or want to do something similar or keep up with what I've been doing. I will mention I'll still put up a video after today's manifesto, either tomorrow or the day after, going over the three manifestos for Path of Exile's upcoming league and expansion. So I'll still go over that in somewhat of detail. So basically what's happening here is Diablo 2 20 years later. So all they've done is put out a title that is big update of the game's visual features. Exactly the same game, almost no changes whatsoever, almost no quality of lives. If you've played Diablo 2 back then, this is exactly the same thing, except it looks quite a bit shinier and runs quite a bit smoother. So it is a good little nostalgia trip for those of us that have played it, or for those of us that haven't. If you dive into something like this, it is a good sort of example as to where Path of Exile got a lot of their ideas from, and a lot of their mechanics, or just ideas about this type of a game in general and how they'd like to build it, because Path of Exile was always sort of a spiritual successor to Diablo 2, and Chris and the team did get plenty of ideas from Diablo 2 as to how they'd like to build their game, and they still kind of do, as was, discussed in the recent podcasts and stuff. And mechanically and all that, and as a game 20 years ago, absolutely stunning and phenomenal, and I played it many times over. This is basically what it looked like back then. You can still toggle a button while playing Diablo 2 and just get to see the old one. I played it a lot back then when I was a teenager or some shit like that. When it first came out, it was my favorite game. I sunk many hours into it, and it doesn't really hold up that well to modern day gaming. It's still got plenty of addictive properties, but it's fairly shallow, and it will be, I think, a short-term amount of fun. What you can see here is one of my characters that is basically taking on the absolute end game content that the game now has to offer, and that is just fighting these three mini-bosses that drop a part or an organ that you then combine and then go and fight the three major uber bosses in Mephisto, Diablo, and Baal. And then they'll drop a fancy item, and that's pretty much it. Otherwise, what you saw earlier on my Sorceress is the entire end game. Otherwise, you are just farming, and you put on some magic find gear, and you get better and better gear, farm faster, and do the same content over and over and over again until you find some cool loot. So it's basically got these really addictive properties to it, where you still want to keep farming and you can't wait for that next big drop, that little dopamine hit, but you're really just doing the same shit over and over again, and it is pretty shallow in that regard. And you basically have to create your own endgame, because this is just a very small amount of endgame, a couple of bosses, they drop a special item. Otherwise, you have to create your own endgame in the form of trying to hit level 99, and that means you're doing a lot of Baal runs, or cow runs. Trying to just make lots of different characters based off of lots of different gear, just farming as good as possible, doing duels. Otherwise, that's all there really is to it. It's still pretty fun, and it, like I said, should give you maybe at least a couple of weeks of enjoyment, just because you're out there farming, you're trying to experience a few characters, and then it's kind of over. The game really needs a lot of updates over and over again, like a Path of Exile, to keep you coming back for more. Otherwise, it will be short-term fun. So with that said, I do want to just go over everything I've done in my characters, and just let you see how they're built, and if you want to play them in a similar sort of fashion real quick. I'll basically just go over my characters and how they work and all that, and I could talk a lot about Diablo 2 and how it is in modern day gaming. And I did a bit of that, but I'm not going to go into huge depth at this point. But I will be plenty critical while talking about my characters and all that, and maybe you can get an idea about how it is in modern day gaming. In any case, just basically cataloging my adventures in D2. I started out with a assassin, and it was just built purely for traps. So a trap assassin basically is a very, very similar playstyle to Path of Exile totem gameplay, where you place your traps kind of like totems, and they just attack for you. You can have 5 of them, and then you run around. And there are plenty of other skills you use in between, but basically lightning trap is what you use, and then something called death sentry, which is a very similar thing to lightning trap, but it explodes corpses of enemies. So basically this is all the gameplay is going to look like. Let's see. Let me see if I can remember what we're doing. Alright, so there's our mercenary. The game is heavily reliant on mercenaries. Here's our traps. You just run around, they attack stuff. The character's currently not geared anymore, so it's not going to be doing too much. But as you can see, they just shoot lightning. They explode things if you use the corpse detonation ones, and they help get you through sort of the immunities in hell, and it's one of your other fallback skills basically, as pure lightning just won't get you that far, since there are immunities in this game, and that does make things very difficult for any individual character built around just one sort of ailment or type of damage. So in this case, it's just lightning trap, and it got me through the entire game and hell and all that, and it is a pretty strong setup. Basically, you just build straight into all these trap things, and the way passives and skills work in D2 is some of them just have synergies where you pick your main thing, so lightning sentry, get it to 20, and then it gets some bonuses from taking the other skills as well. So no brainer, just take it all. Take whatever other little skills you want in between. So this thing just gives you a bit of movement speed. This thing can convert enemies and stun them. That just makes everyone like kind of blinded. And that's it. That's the entire build. They're pretty simple, they're pretty one-dimensional, and you're running around and just doing the content over and over. And in hell, there are plenty of immunities, so lots of things are like immune to lightning. In plenty of acts and all that, and it gets really hard, so you have to either build with other things in mind, not just pure lightning, or skip those enemies, or your mercenary has to be very powerful to help carry you. Otherwise, there's also the stat point system, and it's pretty shallow. Like, it looks, you know, I've heard people say, oh, there's not even any stat points and shit in D3 like there was in D2. I mean, ultimately, you're basically just getting a couple of points into, like, strength so that you can wear some of your gear, and then pumping everything into vitality. And the end game for this game is to not put any points in other attributes at all, because you can get charms and other points of gear and stuff that give you enough strength, dexterity, that you don't need to put any into those, and then you just go pure vitality. So it's not that deep, it's kind of shallow in that regard. In any case, I got this character to about 86, it's pretty fun, trapping playstyle. You level through Wake of Fire, then you respec into all of this, and it becomes pretty damn good for leveling. But ultimately, one of the big flaws of this game is if you're going to farm a lot of the game and go through all these acts and all shit and farm whatever, like Mephisto, Endurance of Hate, River of Flame, Diablo, whatever you choose to farm, this game is basically bullshit without teleport for farming, given that teleport exists. If teleport didn't exist, okay, we're all on the same footing and you're running around and you're struggling and there's lots of doorways and collision with enemy monsters and it's tough to get through stuff and the layouts suck and it'll take you a while to get through certain things. But since teleport does exist, if you're not playing with teleport for this endgame boss farming, you are severely hampering yourself, and as such, you're an idiot. And that's how I felt while playing my assassin, so I thought, okay, I guess I have to make another character. I completely forgot just how necessary teleport is for all of this, and my next character was a lightning sorceress. So everyone is currently, or initially was playing a blizzard sorceress, because they do have the best chance of getting through hell based off immunities, and also they're really good for killing bosses for magic find without needing too much points of cast rate or lots of gear and all that. So you get as much magic find in your character as you can, and then you just blizzard, teleport, onto enemies. I didn't really want to do that. I really like the lightning in this game, so I went ahead and made a lightning version of a sorceress, and it's basically built around the lightning skill or the chain lightning skill. Chain lightning just clears a bit better for area, but it's got about half the damage of pure lightning, which just shoots a beam in a direct line. And you can see what those look like here and what they used to look like. So let's see. Here's our lightning. That's just pure lightning. This is chain lightning, but it will chain to enemies. And what they used to look like was kind of like this. Looked a bit thicker, but I don't know. It's kind of whatever. So that's the old chain lightning. This is the new chain lightning. And I really like the way chain lightning, or the lightning skills look in the game currently. So I did go for lightning, and it's pretty fun. It farms very well still. It's going to be a bit nicer to clear some of the other zones. Basically, you get a point of teleport. You grab a point of warmth, which is just some mana regen. 1 point in frozen or shiver armor, and that's just like bit of defense, and then just do whatever in your lightning area. Static field is pretty required as well. That chops down % of boss enemies health, so do that, and then just take the synergies for lightning, and there's your build, and it feels pretty good. Once again, get as much strength as you need, pump everything else into vitality, and that's all there is to it. And teleport basically is, like I said, straight up bullshit and necessary. Because in this game, teleport is just an instant travel, and it goes through walls, and you can do it over and over again, and it gets you to the end point way, way, way quicker than anything else. So there is, you know, a form of balance eventually brought into this game with a rune word called Enigma, and that means that everyone can have teleport. But up till that point, it's just sorceress, and that is why she's the primary farmer in early game. As far as the gear is concerned, I'm just, like I said, going for basically pure magic find. We found ourselves a Harlequin crest. You socket it with a topaz, a spirit, which is just lots of cast speed and damage and stuff. Oculus, got mage fist, Nagel ring, just another shitty magic find ring. Found some war travelers, good magic find on those. And that's about all the magic find I have. Also a skin of the Varp Magi and a IK belt. There is a good panel here with some magic find and all that, so 251 magic find at the moment. Ideally, the more the merrier, so aim for about 400. If I just go to better chest, you know, rings, amulets, whatever, could comfortably hit 400. Magic find is just going to get your drop rates a lot better for good uniques and all of that. And my mercenary, he does play a big role in helping you survive and also kill things that are lightning immune, for example. So we've got an insight on him. It's a Colossus Valge, and ideally it's ethereal. And yeah, that's all there is to it. Get insight. That's how you sustain mana in this game, basically, on these casters, as well as just chain chugging potions, which pretty archaic system and makes you appreciate the flask system a little more. Then found a Leviathan, makes him a bit tankier. You could also use a Treachery rune word, and then some Life Leech from a Tal's Mask with some strength on it as well. It's still going to be a lot of micromanaging for your merc. It's not going to just like live and kill everything. You still have to give him lots of potions, which if you press shift onto any of your potions, so shift 1, that delivers him a potion immediately. You have to pull them back plenty, you have to, you know, play carefully, but they are very strong tools for our survival in this game. And then next I made a assassin just for kicking purposes. So he is a potential Uber farmer, which is the last end game content as I showed and mentioned. And the idea was I just wanted to try some martial arts out, some, you know, various skills, and then the actual skill that you use for killing the big bosses is Dragon Talent, which is a kick, and that's what you would have seen in the earlier part of the video. So it's just this, just kicking stuff, and the reason for using that is that it's a very fast, the fastest sort of attack you can use, which is just a delivery system for a mechanic called Crushing Blow, which takes off a percentage of an enemy's life. So when you have a boss with lots of health, taking off a percent becomes very powerful. And these sorts of uber killers build around having a bit of crushing blow and then just delivering it in a quick manner. So you've got your kicks in, you've got your smiter, which is a paladin and just hits with a shield very quickly. Fury droids, you can use barbarians, shit like that. And basically you just choose whatever character is going to be kind of melee, build it somewhat thick, and then some sort of delivery of crushing blow, and that's how you kill those end game bosses. And my example's pretty budget, just slapped together version of whatever I had, and it, you know, was pretty rough. You saw me die to Mephisto. It took me like 15 minutes to kill Mephisto because my resists are pretty bad, and he makes them even worse. But basically, you just get some crushing blow, attack fairly fast, make sure you get some life tap, because that's basically just instant full leech for your character. Get life tap onto the enemy, and then just crushing blow him until he's dead, with all of these sorts of uber bosses and stuff. As far as the rest of the gear, it's not very important. Wearing Raven Frost, I've got this sword which gives us Frozen Orb. It's about as close to this game's cast on crit as you could have, because you attack with your kick and then you just cast out Frozen Orbs. These guys are immune to cold, so you're not going to see an example of any good DPS here or anything. But yeah, the character doesn't really do much AoE. It's not good for clearing, farming, anything like that. But it is a single target specialist, and it's just built entirely for killing a certain boss or two. And I'm probably dead, no big deal. So yeah, just a small example of what that character looks like. Wasn't trying to survive or anything. And then in Diablo 2, when you die, you just have to pick up your corpse, or you can start a new game and your corpse will be... You had to escape that. Will just be at the start of town, and yeah, that's just how the system works. Or you play hardcore and try to never die, no big deal as well. So what the character does is otherwise just get a bit of resist. It's got Angelic Ring and Amulet. That's how you cover a lot of your accuracy attack rating on this build. Got a Storm Shield, Gore Riders, and you upgrade them with the cube to make them a higher level base. So they're Myrmidon Greaves, IK Belt, that, and yeah, that's it. And then a bunch of charms that do various life manners and whatever. And the build itself is basically just 20 points in Dragon Talon, and that's kind of all that matters. I did take a bunch of Dragon Tail, which is kind of like an AoE kick, but it kind of sucks, is what it is. This is a bit of a teleporting kick. I've put 20 points into Shadow Master, which is just a minion, more or less. Where is it? That does some of your attacks and stuff and just helps tank things. Burst of Speed that, you know, makes you a bit faster, and that's all there is to that. And Cloak of Shadows, and then putting points in Death Sentry, which is the corpse explosion thing, so that when we're single targeting with our garbage clear Death Sentry, if you put those down, it just AoEs a bit more for you. And once again, got as much strength, a little bit of dex, and then a bunch of vitality. This character needed a bit more strength because it's wearing some strength gear. And that's more or less it for my characters there. I have played a few others just to try and play co-op with Quinn on hardcore, so that's been quite a lot of fun, just trying to pick two really sort of not ideal non-meta builds and then taking them through hardcore. And as you can see, plenty of deaths have occurred on these characters. The one that is still currently alive is the Amazon that is Javelin Throwing, and I'll show you this one as well, because this type of spec is basically the best AoE farming you can have in Diablo. Basically, if you just, you know, want to talk in absolutes. And what is happening is you have javelins and you spec into Lightning Fury. So this skill is extremely powerful because every single level gives it an additional bolt that it releases. What you do is throw one javelin. When it connects with enemies, it spreads out more bolts, and the more levels you have, the more bolts it's going to spread out. This is what it looks like, and currently it will be spreading out 23 bolts. Once you also get some pierce in the build, it behaves similar to, like, let's say a kinetic blast. So you'll pierce with your main javelin, and then it will spread bolts, and then it will spread bolts to the next enemy, so on and so forth. And that's why the more enemies there are, the more it's going to spread. and just becomes a very powerful farmer through cows and bale and whatever else you're doing. So that's basically all there is to that character. Just show you real quick what the AoE and all that looks like. A little bit scared, haven't played this character in a few days, and it is on hardcore. That's all there is to it. You're just running around throwing your bolts, and they AoE farm extremely well off of basically no gear, because it doesn't need it. It's like a spell. It scales off of your passive tree. More gear will help, of course, because you get plus skills in this game to scale most of your gear, damage and levels and all of that. Absolutely nothing for a javelin at the moment, and you do have quantity, so you have to keep repairing your javelins. But the build basically is just get Lightning Fury, max out Charge Strike, because that's your single target, so you just stab things and it'll put out a lot of little lightning bolts, and they shotgun, so very strong single target, and then just take all the synergies or whatever synergies you feel like taking, get down to Pierce, make sure you got a few points in that, and that's all. And it's a very powerful character for doing that AoE farm. Absolutely nothing on the gear to really mention. Once again, take a few points in stuff so you can wear things. Since I've got trash gear, I definitely need a few more points in strength and dex, and then a bunch of vitality. And that's it for the Diablo content, I think, for the YouTube. Nothing else to really say there. It's been fun. Diablo, still, like I said, good couple of weeks of fun, and you kind of create your own fun. For me, it's been a good nostalgia trip, and it still just makes me kind of miss PoE a bit, but we'll get back to that soon enough. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and the D2 content that's been on my Twitch channel recently. Hope you're not holding anything too against me walking away from PoE for just a little bit, but it's a game I played a lot when I was a kid, and I definitely wanted to experience the update just a little bit. So thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.